Hey guys, before I start this video, please subscribe, please thumbs up this video, please comment if you guys want to drop a comment. But I'm just going to be talking about John Leguizamo and the new Super Mario Brothers movie with Chris Pratt. Apparently John Leguizamo has an issue with this movie. He says that it is essentially what is he saying? It's they don't have any Latinx characters or stars in this movie. This movie stars Chris Pratt. Now, I haven't checked out the whole entire cast of this movie, but this is not a live action movie. This is pretty much a cartoon, a voice-over movie, a CGI cartoon voice-over movie. Now, John Leguizamo was actually in the original Super Mario Brothers movie in the 90s, I believe. And I'll tell you guys this, all right? Mario is Italian. And Italians are kind of white, kind of, depending on who you ask. They're not Latino. John Leguizamo, I think he's Puerto Rican, I think. I'm not quite sure, but he's Latin. He's complained that there's not a lot of Latinx. There's not any Latinx in this, any Latinx stars in this movie, and that it's practically all white. Okay, here's my thought on it. Okay, John Leguizamo is blaming white people, and here's the thing: Hollywood has a lot of Jewish people. All right, now I don't know if you're gonna consider them white or not, because the Jews are kind of weird about this stuff. I don't know. All right, they look white, but their politics are not white. And they're kind of two-faced. They're kind of two-faced, like black people are two-faced, because of their race card. I mean, you give anybody a race card, you're pretty much giving them an out on everything, on everything. They'll commit racism, and then they'll make an excuse. All right, here's the race card, I get a pass. That's them. All right, blacks and Jews. That's from my personal perspective. All right, they got a race card. They load up the race card with a bunch of victim movies, black victim movies, black Jew movies. They're not even the biggest victims in this country. The Native Americans are, and they don't have a race card. Asian Americans don't have a race card. Latin Americans don't have a race card. Arab Americans don't have a race card. The gays do have a gay card, but the gays deserve the gay card. All right, I'm for the gay card, because I'm not cool with the certain people getting the race cards and other people is not. So if all you other people want to get a race card, definitely put out more victim movies. I'm a victim. I'm a victim. I don't even know why they made 12 Years a Slave, because the Native Americans, the original Americans of this country, have pretty much been oppressed for 600 years. 600 years versus 12 Years a Slave versus, however, they're still oppressed. Native Americans are still oppressed in their own country. They don't even have their own country. But let me just get back to the issue at hand. Now, it's John Leguizamo's argument. It's kind of, he's going after white people. He's saying you whitewash the film. Now, here's the thing about it. All right, it's kind of ironic that in the 1990s, pre-1995, there was a part Asian American Superman on network TV. All right, they were willing to cast a Latino actor in a major movie. Super Mario Brothers, it had Bob Hoskins in it. It was a pretty decently big movie. They were okay with casting a Latin American character in that movie. So what happened the last 25 years from 1995 to 2017? All right, I'm gonna give you guys an explanation of this. All right, now he's blaming white people for this, but if you guys noticed during that whole 25 years from 1995 to 2017, the blacks essentially took up a majority of the minority roles. He should be blaming black people for this and not white people. All right. He should be blaming black people for taking the majority of the minority roles from as opposed to having the media just pretty much have a quota, an equal quota for every race. The blacks pretty much used quote unquote civil rights to promote their agenda, to promote blacks in the media. They didn't promote minorities in the media. They promoted blacks in the media. That's why you see so many black people in the media. All right. So prior to 1995, the majority of America, and I'm going to say the majority of Hollywood, was run by white people. They gave a certain portion of minority roles to Asians, to blacks, to Latinos, you know, and they pretty much just split that out equally. All right. So you got like, maybe you got like 90% white and then 10% for everybody else, but they split it up like 2% for the Asians, 2% for the Latinos, 2% for the African Americans, 2% for this. It's equally. All right. After 1995, what happened was the whites kind of pushed everybody else out of the way. They pushed the Asians out of the way. Not only did they push the Asians out of the way, but they committed hate crimes. They committed cultural, terroristic hate crimes by consistently putting out stereotypes of Asian Americans. Pretty much did that the same thing for Latino Americans. The big pie that was 90% white and then 10% everybody else became about 30 to 40% black and maybe 60% white and maybe like 5 to 10% for everybody else. And when that 5 to 10% for everybody else essentially were the blacks, the whites, and the Jews in the media that monopolized the media, bashing the hell out of every other race. And the media was used as a propaganda tool to promote white, blacks, and Jews and to bash and stereotype and commit racist portrayals of Asian American, particularly Asian Americans, Latino Americans, gays, women's, etc., etc., etc. Now, John Leguizamo, I think, has an argument to be made about this, considering Latinos have been the largest minority in this country since 2000. All right, that's like 22 years. 22 years they have been the largest minority. They surpassed the blacks in population in America 22 years ago. Yet they still have a very small piece of the pie as far as representation is concerned. And I understand what John Leguizamo is saying. Now, I'm not the biggest John Leguizamo fan. All right, his politics are kind of, John, you're Latino, okay? You need to have a segregated Latino civil rights instead of constantly, saying the whites are the problem because the blacks are your friends. The blacks are not your friends, bro. All right? They took up a huge portion of the pie from Asian Americans, Latino Americans, etc., etc. All right? Your problem is not with the whites. It's essentially with the blacks, who took up a huge majority of representation in Hollywood for a good 25 years, from 1995 to 2017. Now, what happened? You want to ask what happened from why 2017? Why 2017 is social media happened. Social media happened. Social justice warriors happened. You have now, instead of a monopolized media that constantly sent out a certain message about how, blacks are good, whites are good, and Jews are good, and then Asians are bad, Latinos are bad, and pretty much just push them out of the way. You have the majority of Americans, all races, having a voice and having the ability to express their voice, and looking at certain things, looking at all things in the media with a perspective of, you can't make excuses for portraying this group races. You can't make excuses for pushing this group out of the way and constantly pushing this group in the way. You can't make, because these people now have a voice. They're not being brainwashed by the media, constantly watching TVs and movies of blacks, whites, and Jews. They now have a voice saying, we don't want just to watch white, blacks, and Jews. We want representation for our people. We want representation for how we see ourselves, because it matters. It matters. Now, even though Mario is Italian, it's an Italian character created by a Japanese company, the fact that John Leguizamo was one of the two main stars in this movie in 1995 means that he has a say in this. All right? He has a say in this, being as, the progression is, if you were okay with having a Latino star in this movie in 1995, in 2002, you should have more Latino stars in this movie in 2022, and not less. So even though John Leguizamo is not Italian, I don't know if Leguizamo sounds like an Italian name. I don't know, but regardless of that, he has the right to say that the movie should at least have a certain amount of Latino characters, a certain amount of Asian characters, blacks, gays, women, whatever. Rainbow it up. It's 2022 in America. All right. This is not about jobs. It's definitely not about jobs. This is about representation of people, representation of a race. This is essentially racial branding. It's racial branding. It's essentially a proxy race war. It's essentially how the caste system is in this country was set up. It's essentially how the caste system in this country has essentially been nullified for the last 5 years, since 2017, because of social media and the social justice warriors out there. And that's why it matters. That's why it matters for anybody. That's why it matters. That's why people like John Leguizamo, and I've seen like John Leguizamo go out there and say a lot of stuff about a lot of things. And that's why I like John Leguizamo, because he's not afraid to go out there and express his opinion and a lot more. I mean, I've seen Rita Moreno say, come out and say a lot of things about this situation, about Latino casting. And I think that a lot more Latinos, you guys should create your own civil rights organization. You guys should create your own race card. You guys should create your own victim complex like the Jews and the blacks have done. All right? That's the game that's being played, and the gays have done. All right? They've also created a victim complex. That's the way the game is done. That's the way the game's been done since 1995 to 2017. Now, like I said before, I'm not the biggest John Leguizamo fan, because, truthfully speaking, it's not the whites who have taking these roles away from you. It's essentially them casting more black people because the blacks actually pushed them to, using civil rights, using the race card, using blah blah blah, all that stuff to push their agenda in Hollywood. So as far as John Leguizamo is concerned, man, John Leguizamo, all you Latinos out there, definitely, you gotta speak up for yours, man. You gotta speak up for yours. You gotta get that social media working, and just and not just Latino Americans, Asian Americans, Arab Americans, Indian Americans, gays, trans, fat people, women, like any group that has been essentially minimalized, essentially have pretty much been ostracized for a good 25 years from 1995 to 2017. Just go out there and fight. Go out there and fight. It's your time. Okay, you guys have the ability to do it in 2022. For the last 5 years, you guys have the ability to use the social media to change Hollywood, to change the racism in Hollywood, to change the monopoly that was held by blacks, whites, and Jews in Hollywood. You have the ability to now express yourself, to racially or group brand yourself. So you should definitely do that.